Nerscylla is the very first Temnoceron introduced in the Monster Hunter series. He made his debut in Monster Hunter 4 and is a giant spider. Nerscylla has 6 eyes, 4 legs, 2 hooked claw-like appendages known as pedipalps, and mandibles on his mouth. He's wrapped in a hide from a very familiar monster and has several large crystallized poison spikes emerging from his back, giving him a very tall appearance. Nerscylla is found in the Sunken Hollow, Primal Forest, and other similar biomes. His movements are jittery and unorthodox compared to most other monsters. He likes to frequently strafe left and right, adjusting to get a better attack angle at you. His physical attacks consist of pedipalp strikes and swipes, a slam where he rears back before striking his legs down, as well as a leaping attack, where he hops backwards rapidly before launching himself forward. Temnocerons in Monster Hunter are functionally spiders. As such, in most cases, they can spin and shoot webs. With Nerscylla it comes from his pincer. He can shoot out 3 globs rapidly, or a single one while leaping backwards. Coming into contact with them will trap you momentarily, and Nerscylla can sometimes take advantage of this with a special strike, where he greatly extends his mandibles and snaps them together, inflicting anyone caught with poison. He can also launch a string up into the air and swing himself forward, or shoot a string forwards to slingshot himself. Many locales in Monster Hunter 4 contain these canopies that can be stood upon but also travelled beneath, which effectively makes the combat zones multi-layered. Some monsters can make use of the canopies by hanging underneath and attacking from above, or from below if you're atop the canopy, and Nerscylla is no different. If you're atop the canopies when he's below, he'll try to either rapidly shoot 3 webs, perform a poison mandible snap from underneath, in addition to a leaping attack. If you're below the canopy, then Nerscylla can climb onto the ceiling and drip poison down from his crystals, attempt to snatch you with his pedipalps, or once again fire 3 web globs from atop the canopy by sticking his butt below. If you're hit with a specific attack, Nerscylla will reel you in towards him like a fish, in order to prepare for a close range strike. This includes his mandible poison snap, but also a pincer attack that puts you to sleep. What's interesting is that upon falling asleep, Nerscylla will diligently inspect you to make sure you're actually down for the count, before unleashing his desired punishment, usually one of his more stronger attacks. Earlier I mentioned Nerscylla's hide belonging to another monster. A look at his nest makes it clear. It's Gypceros. Nerscylla feeds on this monster and covers himself in the skin of his prey, likely for extra protection. It's where the poison crystal spikes come from, and likely also why Nerscylla is very careful to make sure you're not pretending to be asleep. He too has been hit with a fake out death flail, and like us can be very vigilant about it. But because these parts of Nerscylla do not belong to him, you can break them off fully. Gypceros' hide and the poison spikes. Removing them all shows Nerscylla's true self. A white, and perhaps even more creepy spider-like spider. In Monster Hunter 4's high rank, Nerscylla actually loses the sleep status on his pincer, trading it for poison once again. In G rank, he will march forwards a considerable distance for his mandible snap. Generation's ultimate Nerscylla retains the same changes across low, high and G rank. However, he keeps the sleep pincer no matter what. 4 Ultimate's G rank introduces a desert-bound subspecies, Shrouded Nerscylla. Available to battle only at night, Shrouded Nerscylla is covered in Kezu hide this time, and his spikes are instead paralysis crystals rather than poison. He has new abilities to compensate for the lack of canopies and ceilings. The most famous change is that Shrouded Nerscylla can swing into the air multiple times, chaining it together. If his spikes come into contact with you, you'll be paralysed. Shrouded can also burrow into the ground and ambush you with his mandible snap, and on other occasions can perform the attack without needing to individually extend each one, making it much more deadly. Nerscylla skipped the 5th generation of Monster Hunter entirely, but returned to Wilds. In this game, he's primarily found in the Iceshard Cliffs, a very cold region which is a first for him. If you recall from the previous episode, Gypceros also hangs here, and the two can turf war. Nerscylla webs up Gypceros and totally binds him down, but before he can finish the job, Gypceros flashes his crest which stuns Nerscylla, allowing the poison bird to flee for his life. Wild's Nerscylla retains most of his 4 ultimate changes. However, like Gypceros, he will actively try and punish you when incapacitated, either by his stinger or webs, and will often attempt a mandible snap. Other additions include combos, such as being able to swipe his pedipalps, and is much more willing to instantly bring out his mandibles. Nerscylla will also chain his web globs, so that he fires 6 in a row now. Wilds generally doesn't have canopies like in Monster Hunter 4, but Nerscylla's nest in the Iceshard Cliffs has a webbed floor and ceiling that Nerscylla can cling from underneath. Once again, he can ambush from below and web from the ceiling, but he will no longer attempt to reel you in like in 4. When Omega Planetis travelled into the Forbidden Lands from a dimensional portal, he created his own version of Nerscylla, known as the Nerscylla clone. At first glance, it looks like a standard Nerscylla, but there's a strange pixelation effect on him. Nerscylla clone has all the same attacks as Nerscylla, the webs, mandible snap, sleep stinger, but now also lasers. By bringing out his mandibles, he can shoot either a laser straight ahead of him, another into the ground, or even a sweeping laser in a 360-degree angle. indicated by his poison spike briefly flashing. The poison spike can also launch explosive missiles in a ring, which he doubles up on when enraged. I really like Nerscylla. Monster Hunter 4 knocks it out of the park with new monsters in terms of variety, and Nerscylla being a spider means nobody else in the game fights quite like him. He can move and attack from so many different angles, and the way he uses the canopies really ties into the game's theme of verticality quite well. I'm also a fan of how, ecology wise, he's been looped in quite nicely with a pre-existing monster. 4 Ultimate was my first game, and it was genuinely really hard for me to tell who was new and who was old as a result. I think the issues with Nerscylla are mainly technical. I feel as though he often fails to punish you properly when webbed up or put to sleep, and even misses his mandible snap quite a lot. Shrouded is a decent time. The emphasis on web swinging not only makes him the first ever wirebug user, but it also means verticality is still a major aspect in this fight too. I think it's kind of a shame he doesn't have more Kizu abilities, or a way to leverage his paralysis in other ways. Nerscylla is a very status focused monster, which is quite nice, but I think Shrouded could benefit from some alternate projectile, like if his webs could paralyze you too, for instance. In 4 Ultimate, I love Shrouded Nerscylla's Charge Blade. It deals large amounts of sleep damage, and because the Charge Blade can deal huge bursts with SAEDs, it's the perfect combo. Wilds Nerscylla is interesting because, like Gypceros in Wilds, he'll actually attempt to instantly punish you when caught by his tricks, only I feel as though Gypceros was far more accurate in his punishing attacks with the tail strikes. Nerscylla still often misses his mandible snap in a way I almost find disappointing, and it's a shame he can't reel in hunters anymore. The lack of canopies also limits his moveset variety, since there's less ways for him to change up the fight and force you to adapt to a new style of fighting. I am glad that he still feels unique though, especially because recent Monster Hunters have expanded the roster of Temnocerons. Ragnakadaki is much heavier and sturdier, with a focus on commanding minions and flames, while Lullaby is extremely acrobatic, with almost no focus on webs. Nerscylla feels like a middle ground between the two, but with its own focus on status attacks and restraining webs. I wasn't expecting Nerscylla clone to hit so hard. When I first heard about it, I assumed it would just be a normal Nerscylla, but with some enhanced attacks. The lasers were a genuine surprise and definitely do make him a lot more dangerous. What's mildly interesting is that he's not actually a variant or anything, he still counts as a Nerscylla. Additionally, I find it's very funny how Omega likely tried to seek out something similar to himself in order to clone. In regards to Nerscylla as a whole, the expansion is the perfect time for Shrouded to return. He'd fit in pretty well with the Plains or Wyveria, and I think the faster speed and dexterity of the new monsters would benefit this subspecies greatly. I'd like to see him have greater movement capabilities. I compared him to a wirebug user earlier, but if he had the ability to slingshot himself even mid-air in different directions, that could be fun to see. So, what do you all think of Nerscylla in his debut and return to Wilds? And how do we feel about Shrouded? Did you enjoy his appearance in the movie? What kind of things would you want to see from this monster in the future? And do you prefer him to the other Temnocerons? Let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and have a good day.